Hey guys, I'm Marcus. This is Adela. We're from Squamish, BC, and we currently reside in La Paz, Mexico, and we are
Retired!
retired. I'm 47 years old, retired 2 years ago at the age of 45. Adela is 41, and she retired recently in September, so depending on when you're watching this, was a few months ago.
Hey Gen Mex, you just met Adela and Markus, and they are part of the FIRE movement, which is financially independent, retire early. And they're going to talk all about that movement and their experiences with it and their life here in La Paz in terms of like what they're doing. And, we're going to show you their place, tell you all about their life here, and especially how you can follow in their footsteps and retire early. So let's dig into a little bit of the story going back to when they were working, kind of the beginning of the story, and first started to hear about the FIRE movement.
It's worth mentioning that we both come from immigrant families. And I think coming from immigrant families, you kind of have an idea, a perception of money and how this is sort of the psychology of money. Coming from an immigrant family, we never lived off of our credit cards or carried credit card debts. My parents taught me the importance of saving and never living paycheck to paycheck, living below your means. I think even before I understood what FIRE was, I remember a book that I read in my early teens. It was called The Wealthy Barber by David Chilton. I mean, it's a very famous book. And I think the biggest takeaway for me from that book was understanding the power of compound interest. If Warren Buffett is pretty famous for saying that all of his wealth is because he started investing at such an early age. So I understood, I think, at a really early age that saving was important. I came from an immigrant family, but reading this book, I think, really sort of showed me the power of compound interest.
Also, we were quite inspired by a couple that we learned about a long time ago. They're called Our Rich Journey. They're one of the couples that we basically followed throughout their FIRE movement, and they kind of laid out a platform essentially to help kind of nudge us into a direction where we would start boosting our income. We set a goal on when we wanted to retire. We were fortunate enough to choose careers that we didn't necessarily love doing, but we knew we're going to be in high demand and we're high paying. So that really has helped us. We're very like-minded people. I think also that's very, very beneficial, is to find a partner that you can potentially grind this out with. I think that's very, very important. And another thing that we also don't have are kids, and that really helps. So like-mindedness.
So it's not to say that you can't FIRE with kids, but I mean, she's talking about some of the things.
It helps not having kids.
And we can talk about some of the details of FIRE, I think, in a bit. But to answer your question of when we really threw ourselves into it,
10 years ago.
Yeah, I would say 10, 15 years ago is when I understood what FIRE was. The way that I'd been living up until that point now finally had a name. And I think that as Adela sort of mentioned, we learned about FIRE through YouTube. So people like Brighton West, inspire us in our lives to do things and think different ways. And Our Rich Journey is a YouTube channel. If you haven't checked them out,
they're amazing.
I'm sure you should definitely check them out. They're based out of Portugal, but they retired in their 30s with enough money to sort of move their entire family to Portugal and enjoy their lives over there. So,
and I think also the part of FIRE, like Marcus mentioned, is living within or less than what you make, or living within your means. That's partly why we chose to come to Mexico, because obviously Mexico's lifestyle here, or like living here, is a lot less expensive than in Canada. And so we're very well aware of that. So what we're doing right now is called slow travel. And we're trying to essentially figure out where we do want to call a place permanent home.
Yeah.
So
and I think we could break that down into sort of separate pieces for your audience.
So we're starting in La Paz, and then we'll see where life takes us.
So if you want to check out Our Rich Journey, it'll be up in one of these corners so you can see that, or there'll be links down below to some great FIRE channels too. I've been, in preparation for this interview, kind of listening to podcasts and reading things and whatnot. So there's a lot of information out there. And I think back to my 20 years ago or something, I think this is very similar to the voluntary simplicity movement, and just maybe not with the intention of retiring, but the idea of living below your means and just simplifying life. So I do want to hear a little bit about how these guys simplified life. So Adela mentioned that they had great careers that were great paying, but there's also part of the FIRE movement is not spending all of your pennies. So let's hear some examples maybe of how they scrunch down their budget a little bit.
And I do want to clarify, though, that the number one criticism of the FIRE movement is that you have to have high-paying jobs in order to live with FIRE, to implement FIRE, to be part of the movement. And that's just not true. There's two sides to the same coin. And one is obviously, wherever you are in life and whatever you're making, there are different ways to boost your income. And we can talk a bit about side hustles. I mean, everyone talks about side hustles these days later on. But I think by far the more important side of that coin is saving and investing, but it's also adopting a FIRE mindset. So a FIRE mindset is not keeping up with the Joneses. It's finding happiness in experiences and not in the things you have. So what's that saying? The things you own end up owning you. I think it was Chuck Palahniuk in his book Fight Club that said that. If you adopt a FIRE mindset, and I think that's by far the most important aspect of FIRE, you will realize that you can retire much earlier than you would have, if you weren't sort of taking this lifestyle approach. So it doesn't matter where you start. It doesn't really matter how much you make, because whoever you are, you're going to end up retiring earlier than if you otherwise wouldn't have been living with FIRE. So what are some of the things that we've done that helped us save and invest?
So I think the biggest thing we did was move out of one of the most expensive real estate places in the world. We moved out of the center of the city of Vancouver, and we moved into the suburbs, and we invested there. And another thing that we did is we never ever bought a brand new car. I drive a Honda Civic.
Yeah, it's a real beater.
It's like as manual as it gets, not because I can't afford a nice car, but because I'd rather invest that money into something that's going to help my nest egg grow even more. It's just that mindset. Markus cooks all the time. I do all the landscaping, all like the cleaning in the house. We don't outsource that. So I don't know. Those are the kind of things that we do to save money.
Yeah, so
cooking really helps.
Yeah, there's so many things, and if you join the FIRE community, I mean, there's just a plethora of tips and advice that you can glean from the community on how to save money. So some of the things I'm just sort of thinking off the top of my head that we did was, I learned how to fix things. So first and foremost, I'm the least handiest of people you'll ever meet. But if you look back at the last 10 years of home ownership, I've done some pretty remarkable repairs on my own, thanks to the magic of YouTube. You can learn how to do pretty much anything on YouTube, from fixing, what have I done? I've changed the boards to the heating element of a dryer. I've changed the computer to our washing machine.
We renovated our house.
Renovated a home, all thanks to YouTube.
With the help of a contractor, we did some stuff.
Shout out to Nia, thank you. You could do anything on YouTube. Yeah. I mean, you could build an entire house if you wanted to, thanks to the information you learn on YouTube.
Yeah.
Another thing that we've done was I cut my own hair. So it's just so happens I've got an easier hairstyle to cut, but I mean, eating out is one of our bigger expenses. And we found earlier on, and maybe some of your audience would agree, that the less frequent you eat out, the more special it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so easy to get into a habit of eating out all the time. And eating out just doesn't have the same joy as it does when you sort of keep it to special occasions, once on the weekends, mark a milestone, whether it be a financial milestone or something else. What else do we do? We walk a lot. So you would not believe how much money you waste on gas these days. I mean, everyone knows how expensive gas and diesel is these days.
Yeah.
And
Walkability is huge.
and it's good for your health. I mean, we both have show the truckers. Yeah. So we have steppers. Again, don't get the expensive
China
ones.
guts.
These work just as fine as the more expensive ones, and these are Chinese knockoffs. But one of the things that we do, especially now in retirement, is really, really sort of chase the steps that we need per minimum per day. So we try to get 10,000 steps in a day. Sometimes we don't hit it, but
also we have our own home gym. We converted our garage at home into a home gym. Just it's the little things that matter. A wise man once told me that it's not just the big hole that sinks the ship. It's also the little
ones. Yeah.
And so I think it's paying attention to detail. It's the little minutia things that you really have to kind of cut back on. All the subscriptions people have, like
speaking of which, cable television. How annoying is cable television these days? Oh my God. We cut cable many, many years ago, and I would say that our lives have improved. I mean, cable TV is all commercials anyway. So, in terms of what we have on our television, we have YouTube, which is free, and we have Netflix. So, maybe it's
Spotify.
Spotify. and maybe it's worth mentioning, though, that living with fire doesn't mean cutting out everything from your life.
Trust me, I enjoy myself.
Yeah. I mean, it's really just making sure that whatever you pay for brings you joy. And if you sort of do an audit, like go through your credit card statement and do an audit of everything you pay money for, you'd be surprised how many things are on there that you either forgot about or on there, or just don't add any value to your life. So that's definitely a tip that I have for your viewers out there is do an audit of your credit card statement. Sit down with your partner, do an audit, and go through line item at a time and figure out if it actually brings you any joy.
Yeah, definitely thinking about things that bring you joy. And I'm thinking of like when they mentioned the subscription services on like Netflix and Amazon Prime and Apple TV and all these different things that we have all this plethora of shows that we can watch, but we really don't spend that much time watching TV anyway. So we might binge a show every once in a while. So also cleaning. I'm going to show you their house in a moment, and it's pretty simple compared to our house, which I wouldn't want to clean it myself, and I don't clean it myself, so I have to pay someone to clean it. So yeah, there's a lot of options, a lot of ways that you can design your life to make it less expensive. So yeah, this Apple Watch is not anything better than probably one of those Fitbits that you got on there. So yeah, lots of ways to make this happen. But let's hear a little bit more about what they are doing, because young and retired, a lot of people, when they get to retirement ages, they're older, they're like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? So let's hear how these guys, besides the 10,000 steps, how they're spending their days.
It was actually my dad that told me, he obviously retired before I did, but he said, son, there are two challenges. There's getting to retirement is obviously a big challenge. But in his mind, the bigger challenge is staying retired and being happy in retirement. So to be completely honest, when I retired 2 years ago, I'd been working my butt off to try to get to a certain target and a certain date. And when I hit it, to be honest, it was somewhat anticlimactic. I thought that, I'd wake up the next day and go, oh my God, this is fantastic. And it was for a while, not having to go into work. But as the sort of weeks turned into months, turned into, longer than that, I was bored. I'm not gonna lie to you. So I think the trick to retirement and staying retired is be thinking about what it is that makes you happy. So I think we're too involved with what we do as a profession. What we do for a living is so closely tied to our personality that, if you go to a party, there's two questions that are first asked of you. It's what's your name? And the second question is, what do you do? So, once you detach yourself from your profession, you're forced to examine who you are as a person and what makes you happy. So that being said, that's some of the things that we do in retirement are, I'll sort of kick it off to you. What do we do on a day-to-day basis?
Personally, we're very easygoing people. We don't need much to entertain ourselves. I'm not I'm not looking for the most expensive mountain bike to go mountain biking. I can get a cheap one. The thing that we do day to day is we go to the gym. That's very important to us. We literally almost go every day. That's about an hour and a half. We come home, we have breakfast, we go down to the Malecon, we walk around, we take our doggy for a walk, we hang out, we come here, we read, we do some puzzles, we just hang out.
Pickleball.
Yeah,
we're avid pickleball players.
Yeah.
Shout out to Baja Tennis and Gwen and Ted.
Yeah,
out
and
there.
we also.
There's so much to do in La Paz.
Yeah,
though.
we really love
missing
to
a,
wine.
you're missing
We
a lot of
really
stuff.
love to like wine and dine, so to speak. We really like to go out, and I love my IPAs. I'll go, shout out to Paralelo 24, 24. Yeah, we love that spot. We go there for a beer, hang out with some friends. We love live music. We go check out live music venues, and luckily, a lot of the places here are free.
Yeah, a lot of places. Live music here is.
Yeah,
there's
it's
tons
great.
of live music here in La Paz.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, obviously, a big shout out to the beaches here too.
Yeah, always at the beach.
Our favorite beach, Balandra. We've been to Caymancito,
Chalacote.
Tecolote.
Pardon me.
Tecolote. Being here in La Paz, we find that it's a really great jump-off point to go for excursions. On the weekend, or if you're retired midweek. So one of our favorite places is Todos Santos, which is just an hour from here. Cerritos, Las Barillas. We've been to. If you like Cabo culture, you can go down to Los Cabos, San Jose. So, if we're not there, we're sort of planning on going somewhere. We're doing a lot of cool little excursions around town.
Yeah.
The food culture here is amazing. Oh my God! The seafood's probably the best I've had anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
So just plenty of things to do with your free time here.
Now they've listed a lot of things there that you might be thinking, gym membership, because the gym that they were talking about was up in Vancouver. Is there a gym here too, or you have workout equipment in your garage here?
We pay for that. Yeah.
Okay, so gym membership, pickleball membership, things like that, food. The beauty of living in Mexico, this is maybe the difference between the FIRE movement in the United States and FIRE over and become an expat, is all those things are very affordable. Gym membership, I think you guys said it was $30 a month.
Canadian.
30 Canadian dollars a month. That's even better. So, versus in the US, back when I was paying for a gym was over $100 a month. Also pickleball, like up in the US, so much more expensive than down here. You can get an annual membership and it's just, for a couple $100. It's much less expensive to enjoy things here. And also the food culture. That's something down here in La Paz and in other parts of Mexico. You can go somewhere and eat amazing food for kind of regular prices in the US. So like if you were to go to Applebee's in the US or something, whatever you pay there, that'd be what you're paying for like really the best restaurants in town down here. And then also there's like street food and things like that, which can be amazing food without breaking the bank. So I mentioned that they have a rather small house. They have a really big yard. But let's start to hear about what we're sitting in right now.
I would describe our house as Brighton mentioned, it is a smaller house, but it's a house, and I think that's one of the things I think we preferred over an apartment. And one of the reasons is we have a really old French bulldog, so it was important for us to have a gated property where he can roam around, and also being on one floor, we don't have to worry about carrying him up and down stairs. Another thing that we wanted was a full kitchen. So what you see behind us is a full kitchen. It allows us to make meals most days of the week. Having a TV obviously is super helpful. We're big avid movie watchers, so having a TV. Wi-Fi is also included in the rent. Although maybe we should mention the rent. The rent is I think it's roughly $900 US a month, which roughly converts to about 1,200 Canadian. Included in that is all utilities, the Wi-Fi, the gas.
Cleaner twice a month.
A cleaner comes in twice a month. As you mentioned,
big yard.
A huge yard. So it's one of the selling points when we first showed up was the yard. We're like, oh my God, it's beautiful. It's beautifully landscaped with a sort of a desert theme, indigenous plants that you'd find here on the peninsula. Absolutely beautiful. There's a really beautiful neem tree right outside our door, which it's gated. With an auto we have an automatic garage door opener for our car. We could talk about the car in a bit here as well. But what are we missing? Yeah.
So did it come furnished?
That's right. Yeah, it's fully furnished, which is important for us.
We did look at a few condos, however, that were not furnished at all. A lot of them were condos, and nothing included. So we would have had to go and purchase all of that. And we're only here for 6 months anyway, so it was in our best interest to find a fully furnished place. And we did previously know the owners from one of our previous stays a couple of years ago. So we connected with them, and they were able to kindly offer us this place, which we actually love because we don't share walls with anybody. It's on level ground, and like we said earlier, we have an old French bulldog, so it really helps with that. And we just really love the space. We love the outdoor space.
Yeah. So and you kind of touched on it. A huge benefit is actually knowing the owners. So when when we first visited La Paz, I was actually 2 years ago, right after I had retired. We had met the owners at another Airbnb that they run. And we were there for, I think, a week before falling in love with La Paz. We kept in contact with them, and we said, hey, we're coming out for a longer stay this time. Do you have any ideas of a place that we can stay? And they showed us this place. So we're here on a sort of a longer term stay, which means we're not paying Airbnb rates. We have access to them. So it's so valuable to be able to contact someone who is fluent in English and Spanish. If you have any questions, concerns about anything, I mean, something breaks down, which things inevitably do. He's here literally like within an hour. He lives an hour away and has been here to address issues that have come up, which has been a huge thing for us. So one of the things I'm curious about is, and we haven't sort of made up our minds about this yet, is whether the amount that we're paying for rent is high or low. So we've talked to some people and they think it's high, astronomically high, they said. And we've talked to other people who think that what we're paying is a steal. And I have a feeling that the people who think that this is an astronomical price are comparing it to like La Paz of maybe
5 years ago.
No, I would say even 2 years ago. From what I understand, the prices here have just exploded. So maybe they're comparing it to not too long ago. But again, I'll maybe throw it to your audience to sort of comment and see what their thoughts are on that.
Yeah, let us know down in those comments below. What do you think for a studio with a big yard in La Paz, if $900 a month is a good deal? Now, let's remember, all utilities included, also furnished, and 6-month lease. So if it was an annual lease and it wasn't furnished and it wasn't all the utilities included, then it might be less expensive. And I think that's part of it. Not only have things changed over time, but I think people don't compare apples and apples. They're looking at a different place. La Paz is a more expensive place to live, less expensive than Cabo, but a lot more expensive than the mainland or areas near the border or things like that. Actually, someone on the channel just recently said they were renting in a place for $80 a month, which is just like amazing. So just about anyone could retire if they could find a place for $80 a month. But it wasn't in a big city. It wasn't near the ocean. It didn't have the Malecón and all these amenities that we have here in La Paz. But let's also talk about the getting around a little bit, because these guys are here for 6 months and they mentioned their vehicles. So let's talk about that.
So before we talk about how we get around, it's probably worth mentioning where we live. I mean, there's such a diversity of neighborhoods and communities here in La Paz, all with their own charm. I know you, Brighton, you're out in Centenario, which is beautiful and has its own charm. We happen to be in an area called Fi de Paz.
Selva Fi de Paz.
Selva Fi de Paz is, I think it's the official name of it. Close to the sort of the hospital area.
The Purple Hospital.
That's what everyone calls it, the Purple Hospital. I didn't know until I saw it. But we're very close to the Purple Hospital. I would say, how far away from the Malecón would you say?
12 minutes? So 10 minutes?
Yeah, 12 minutes by car. So we're certainly not in an area where if we didn't have a vehicle, we could really take advantage of everything that La Paz has to offer. I mean, if you're down by the Malecon, that's probably where you're going to hang out. So having a vehicle, I think, is of value here in La Paz. You may or may not agree with that, but what we have and what you're going to show your audience is a 1998 Toyota Hiace van that we converted to a camper van. We imported this guy. It's a right-hand drive. We imported it from Japan 2 years ago. We won it on auction, went on a container ship, and we shipped it to where we were. We're extremely excited at the time, and this has allowed us to, I think, really take advantage of what Baja, not just La Paz, has to offer. We've just seen some amazing things driving between, our home in BC and La Paz and further. The excursions that I mentioned. The cities are amazing, but the places in between the cities are equally beautiful and gorgeous.
So one other thing that we found very beneficial with getting a camper van is that it allows us to save money on Airbnbs and hotels. So we were able to just get into a campsite, stay there for a couple nights with our doggy, not pay doggy fees and all that stuff. So it's just simple things like that that really help us save money along the way.
Yeah, and I am super jealous of this camper van. We had an RV for a while, but it was just so big on the roads here. It just was not really all that practical. So, and I love the license plate on the camper van. So check that out. And actually, I'm going to take a quick break here and make sure that you share this video with other people, because this is a great topic, and fire is a movement that lots of people have just heard a little bit about. And this is a great example that you can kind of see what's possible with fire. So be sure to click that share button down below. But let's go back to fire now and hear more just generally how it works, because I just know the little bit that I know, and you're probably in a similar, maybe you haven't even heard of it yet. So let's dig in and learn a little bit about fire at this point.
Fire is a pretty large topic. I mean, first of all, it's a movement. It's a community of people that all subscribe to a really high level idea. And this is what most people understand about fire, is that it's saving as much as you can, having a high savings rate, boosting your income where possible, side hustles, etc.
Planning the same outfits.
wearing the same outfits every day. No, just kidding. But I think that where we could maybe shed some light is on the specifics. So if we drill down into what fire really is, it boils down to a mathematical formula. So without getting into the weeds a bit, it's one of the things that you're going to learn early on in your fire journey is something called the 4% rule. Okay, and what this is that when do we know when we've saved enough? So if you look at how much you're going to need in a year in retirement and multiply that by 25, you're going to end up with a number that is basically your nest egg. So let's say your nest egg, let's use real numbers now, your nest egg is $1 million. Well, 4% of that is going to be $40,000 a year. So if you have $2 million saved, then you're going to be able to live off of $80,000 a year. So that is sort of a cornerstone, if you will, of fire. Everyone who does fire understands this formula and is working towards their fire number. That is how much that they know that they're going to need to save based on what they've estimated they're going to need to spend in retirement. Now, hopefully, if you have the fire mindset, that number isn't going to be astronomical, because you don't need that Porsche, you don't need that Rolex, you don't need to go and eat expensive dinners every day. You're going to sort of value your time, value experiences over things that you own. But once you adopt sort of this mindset, then you are working towards that number. And that's really what fire is, I think, in a nutshell.
Sacrifice and saving, too.
Yeah, sacrifice.
You have to sacrifice.
Sacrifice is a huge thing.
Yeah.
If you break down fire as well, by far the more important half of FIRE is FI. So financial independence is something that we all want. Retire early may not be something that you necessarily want. If you've got a great job and you can't imagine yourself not working, just hit FI, and you can go into work the next day feeling lighter, because you know that you don't have to work if you don't want to. You can take longer vacations. You can go on a sabbatical. Adela, for the last 2 years, she's cut back her hours drastically because we had hit financial independence, but she didn't want to necessarily do nothing and retire early. So she was able to cut back her hours. She was much happier knowing that she didn't have to work if she didn't want to. She got to pick days of the week that she wanted to work and days that she absolutely didn't want to work. So yeah, FI is much more important than RE.
Going back to the career that allows you to do those things, I was lucky enough to be in dentistry. I can work any day of the week if I want. I can work 1 day a week. It's nice to have that flexibility. So, and I can work in any town, really. Any town, any place in the world.
I would love to get that RE part of the equation going because just this morning I was out on the pickleball courts and I had to go home and work because I had a client meeting coming up. So it was something where I was like, oh, all these other folks are out here retired and having fun. But yeah, it's just I haven't been in the FIRE movement, so I haven't been planning this thing. I really should do the math now and see how far away I am from that. But let's get some tips for you guys, from these guys, for how to retire early, how to move to Mexico, how to make this stuff happen.
Okay, so I'll name a couple tips and then I'll pass it over to Adela, who also has a couple of tips as well. And I've thought about this already. So I think first and foremost is finding in a partner someone with a like-minded mindset when it comes to money and finances. FIRE for us has been a team effort. And I think that if either of us thought differently about money and were comfortable carrying, let's say, credit card debt, or didn't want to save as much and didn't want to make the sacrifices that we talked about, that would be extremely difficult. Not to mention, divorce is expensive. Divorce is extremely expensive. Anyone who argues otherwise doesn't know. So, I mean, sometimes it's unavoidable, but best to try to avoid that by finding someone who thinks the same way that you do. Number two, on a little bit of a lighter side, is learn how to cook, everybody. We save an incredible amount of money by cooking at home. And if you can learn to enjoy cooking and not just do something and not have it be just something that you have to do, it's a form of entertainment. I mean, Friday, Saturday nights, you'll often find us here cooking up a storm and drinking wine and making margaritas. And that to me is just as enjoyable as going out and spending money. So those are my two tips.
Get to know the locals, because when you get to know the locals, your life will be more enriched with their culture. We've had the opportunity to meet and greet a various amount of people here in La Paz, locals who've invited us into their homes, and it's really allowed us to save money that way. You can go, to their house for dinner, or they come here for dinner, or, it's better that way. Just not have to go out all the time and
Yes.
entertain yourself via paying for things to do. Making friends is a lot less expensive.
Yeah, we definitely don't just hang out at the gringo places. Those places are fun too. And I think when you first come to Mexico, your natural inclination is to gravitate towards people that speak the same language and sort of are culturally similar to you. But I think that if you stick to that, you're really, really missing out on the beauty of Mexico. So we, aggressively are learning Spanish right now. Estamos aprendiendo español. Es muy difícil, pero, we're learning as fast as we can. And I think that even with the limited amount of Spanish that we have now, we've been able to enjoy a much more enriching experience here, whether that be, little things like just the other day, I was able to share sort of a laughter with someone bagging my groceries at Walmart. And I walked away from there going, man, that was really cool that I was able to share a joke with this person in Spanish. And that wouldn't have been possible if we weren't aggressively learning Spanish. So learn the language, people.
And another really big tip is you need to move to a place where you can retire early. We would not be able to retire early in Canada. It's just way too expensive to live there. So you need to start to look at other places around the world that you can retire comfortably.
Yeah, be open to moving to a lower cost of living. Broaden your horizons. I mean, the bubble you live in is just that. It's a bubble. There's so many other places in the world that you can go and live for much cheaper and have just sort of a broader horizon and a sort of a different way of looking at things. Yeah. There's beauty all over the world. It's not just in where you live.
Yeah. Get used to the nomadic lifestyle. Get used to not having all your clothes, all your things. Just get used to living like a nomad and living abroad and doing things and learning things and adapting to their lifestyle. I think that's very important, is you need to learn how to adapt and you need to learn how to live like a nomad.
Awesome. I love this. And I hope this has been super inspirational for you guys to see folks that are in their 40s that are already retired, living in Mexico. Mexico is making that possible. Another thought that I had while these guys were chatting was that in Mexico, so much entertainment is free. It's a different way. Like, up in the US, I heard that Starbucks is going to no longer have the you can come in for free policy. There's you have to buy something if you want to take a seat. Down here, there's so many parks and the Malecón and squares. There's entertainment happening all the time that it's just free, just because a lot of folks down here can't afford to pay for some of this entertainment. So it's just part of the culture that it's provided out on the street for everyone. So that's something, a big difference between Mexico and the United States, where I think in the United States, like if you're going to do something, you're going to have to go somewhere and you're going to have to pay if you want to hang out with your friends. Like you can go to the beach here, hang out all day and not have to pay a cent for that and really have some of the best entertainment possible. So I'm going to wrap up this video here, though. I hope that you found this this really helpful and exciting and inspirational. And I've got some other videos up here with expats who have made it happen, so you can follow in their footsteps too, and more videos that are perfect just for you down here on YouTube. Make sure to check those the description down below for some additional links. Hasta luego.